What's quack-a-lackin'? This week we are looking for the Samuelson Cabin. This is an authentic pioneer cabin constructed in 1872 that is situated just outside the city of Sioux Falls. So this week we're going to explore the Samuelson Homestead. We're going to get a look at some open prairie, a lot of woodlands. We'll take a look at the Beaver Creek while we are here and hopefully find our way on to the Samuelson Cabin, which is a very unique piece of the early history of this area. Today we're at the Beaver Creek Nature Area. This is a 160-acre nature area located just outside the town of Brandon, South Dakota. And this area was originally the homestead of a man named John Samuelson. He and his wife Anna raised 9 children here. The Beaver Creek area is a mix of open prairie and wooded trails, and as you could probably guess from the name, there is a creek that runs through the area as well. I'm guessing that most likely there's probably a parking area and a place to drive right up to the Samuelson Cabin, but I really want to show you this area, so I thought why not just explore and see if we can find it natively without taking the cheap way out. So it's about 95 degrees today. It's pretty hot outside, but it will cool off once we get into the shade of the trees. So I'm going to keep on hoofing forward and just show you a little bit of the Beaver Creek Nature Area. Now, John and Anna Samuelson were Swedish immigrants who first arrived in this country in 1868. And then in 1869, they filed a land claim for the area that has now become the Beaver Creek Nature Area. In those days, the United States government was really pushing into westward expansion of this territory. And so all you really had to do in those days was find an unclaimed piece of property, file a claim with the government, and they would grant you a deed for 160 acres of land under the conditions that you actually lived there. You couldn't just claim land you were never going to, and you had to develop the property in some way. And for many people in this area, that was agriculture, and for others it was platting out streets and neighborhoods and developing towns. And so Mr. Samuelson was the former of these two. He chose the agricultural path, and he and his wife Anna moved on to this homestead. And as an interesting side note, John Samuelson was the very first person to ever settle Split Rock Township. So if you are from Split Rock Township, stay tuned. We're going to take a look at the home of the man who started your town. I have forgotten how much I enjoy coming out to Beaver Creek. The wooded areas and the sandiness of the path just really take me back to central Arkansas where I grew up. So I feel right at home in this environment. The last time I was here was in September, and if you are in this area, I highly recommend that you come to the Beaver Creek Nature Area during the month of September. It's a little bit hot today, but in September the temperatures are cooler. But the main reason I say this is because at that time there are a variety of different types of sunflowers growing wild in this area, as well as a large number of just native prairie wildflowers that don't come into bloom until the end of summer and beginning of fall. And so the place is absolutely beautiful if you come out here during the month of September. And you'll also encounter some wildlife. I've never come out here without seeing deer. The last time I came, I saw not only about 4 different deer at different locations, but I saw a flock of about 10 turkeys cross the path right in front of me, but they were too quick for me to get a photo. I tried my best. All I got was a photo of an empty trail where turkeys used to be. But you'll see turkeys, deer, endless rabbits, all kinds of birds. This is a bird watcher's paradise, and it's just a nice place to spend the day outdoors, in addition to being a historic location for this area. Back to the Samuelsons. They filed their homestead claim on this property in 1869 and moved here immediately. However, I told you just a few minutes ago that the cabin we're looking for was not constructed until 1872, and that's certainly true. When the Samuelsons first arrived at this property, despite the way it looks today, there weren't any trees here. This was wide open native prairie as far as you could see. It was home to deer and buffalo and endless blue skies. But there was a shortage of trees. And so when the Samuelsons first arrived, what they did was to construct a dugout. And this was a common tactic used by early pioneers in the Midwest. They would find a hillside on their property and dig out a room into this hillside. And typically across the front of the dugout, they would build a front wall that was constructed of these sort of sod bricks. And what this sod was a combination of mud and prairie grasses. And once it dried, it was a pretty decent building material. Now, can you imagine what wintertime must have been like to live inside one of these dugouts? I'm told that the earth around you is a very good insulator from the cold, but I also, from personal experience, can tell you that wintertime in South Dakota is no joke. It can get -30, -40 here. If you have an extreme winter, it might even get to -50 in this part of South Dakota. And so to think of yourself in this room carved out in a hillside with a wall of mud bricks in front of you as your protection from the elements, I have to imagine that that was a very rough lifestyle to endure for those first 3 years. But the Samuelsons did indeed live in that dugout for the first 3 years. And in fact, their first child was born while they lived in the dugout and gathered enough lumber and other materials to finally construct the cabin that they would live in for the following 24 years. I just thought I would share another quick glimpse of Beaver Creek, for which this area is named. It's really an incredibly peaceful setting out here, especially with the birds in the background. Now, from what I've read, the cabin that the Samuelsons built was a 25-foot by 17-foot cabin with some type of a wooden siding on the exterior, which I'm not sure if it's still there or not. And that the cabin was essentially one big room downstairs with a half a loft above. And the Samuelsons slept in the downstairs portion of the cabin, and all of their children slept in the loft in the upstairs portion, which, could you imagine that living situation with your brothers and sisters? There's 9 of you in total, and all of you lay side by side like sardines in this loft at the top of the cabin. I don't know who built a suspension bridge in the middle of the woods, when, or why, but this thing is absolutely amazing. Check this out. Check it out. This bridge is supported by a system of steel cables and chains. There's nothing here to indicate when this bridge was constructed or when it was last tested, but I feel safe that it will probably support my weight, so let's check it out. There's a little bit of a downward slope going on to it. Slight little bit of a bounce or a wobble, like what you would expect with a rope bridge. is definitely bouncy. That's for sure. It's got that trampoline type feel. I don't know if it's safe for me to be doing this. It's creaking. We're not very high off the ground, probably 18 or 20 feet off the ground. So it wouldn't be a life-ending fall, but it would definitely be painful. As I said, the Samuelsons, they got their homestead claim in 1869. They lived in the dugout shelter for the first 3 years. And I'm told that the depression from that dugout is still in the ground. So we'll have to make sure we look for that when we find the cabin. After 3 years, they built this small cabin, had 9 children, raised them all in this cabin. And after 24 years of living in the cabin, they did eventually build a 4-bedroom house next to the cabin that they moved into. The house is no longer there today, but the cabin still is. And I can't wait to get a look at it. So let's just move on down the trail, and I will check in with you when I am able to find and locate the Samuelson cabin from 1872. Okay, so this map is both encouraging and discouraging at the same time. We are at the red dot, which says the Homesteader Nature Trail, which you can see loops around. And from the name, you would presume that this is the area where you can find the cabin but from this overview, you can see it's really wide open and there is no buildings. But then I also notice up here, we had basically started right here and looped around and did all of this to end up here. But up here, there is a homestead loop with a really big parking lot, and you can see from the aerial overview, there's some kind of a structure there. That's where we need to go. So I'm going to get there as quick as I can. I'll check in with you in a jiff, and we will finally get to see the Samuelson cabin. Let's go. As you can see from the look of joy on my face, to say nothing of the cabin behind me, we have found the Samuelson cabin. This is an authentic pioneer cabin constructed in 1872. Let's move in and get a closer look. This cabin definitely looks distinctively different from the Snyder cabin that we looked at last week. The height and the steepness of the pitch of the roof is definitely one huge difference. And I love the way the moss on the side of the roof looks. But yeah, now that I see it in person, I can definitely see how the top was tall enough to make a sleeping space for the children, but still, 9 children sleeping up there. What was that like? What would appear to be the side of the house from today's orientation to the rest of the park is actually the front of the house. The very first view that we saw was actually the side. So this is the front of the house, and that's the original door that the Samuelsons used as they entered and exited this property. And this would have been their view from the front of their home. The picnic tables obviously would not have been there, and this tree would have been very small, if there at all. In fact, the vast majority of these trees would not have been here at that time. It would have been wide open prairie as far as you could see. But either way, it's an absolutely beautiful view. The rear of the home is very interesting. I presume that must have been a window on the top. Surely there wasn't a door there. This would have been the back door for the Samuelson family. Due to the distance between the door and the ground, I presume there must have been some steps. But we can look at a bit from this. The foundation of the building was made of quartzite blocks, which are very common in this area. I guess even from the first pioneer efforts they were utilized. And above that, you have layers of timber and mortar. And then above that, on the top layer, there are some type of, I believe it's cedar shingles for siding. Yeah, it's an absolutely interesting and beautiful construction. And it's been here for 153 years. Although we're not going to be able to get a look at the inside of the Samuelson cabin today, it is 100% possible. Every September, on the Sunday following Labor Day, they have an event here called the Homesteader Day Harvest Festival. And what this is that there will be people here dressed in period attire, and they will be giving demonstrations of agricultural demonstrations of what it was like to work with horse-drawn implements. And they will be giving pioneer demonstrations like blacksmithing and rope making, butter making, things that would have been a normal part of everyday pioneer life. And the part that I'm most interested in, aside from seeing the inside of this historic cabin, is that they have pioneer cooking demonstrations of what it was like to cook using Dutch ovens. And I hope that that includes some tasting demonstrations by yours truly. But more than anything, I really want to see the inside of this cabin and just get a firsthand look at how the Samuelsons lived their lives. While the Samuelson cabin behind me is a distinct piece of local history here in the Sioux Falls area, it's also a piece of our national history, and that's why I felt that it was important to show this cabin and to document the legacy of Mr. Samuelson. As I said, he was the very first settler for the Split Rock Township area, the very first person to arrive here. And as time went on, Split Rock Township became sort of a springboard. It was a jumping off point for people who were pushing further west across the Dakota Territory and then even further west beyond that. So had people like Mr. Samuelson not come to this area, all of that would have certainly happened very differently than it did. And so he's sort of an unsung hero in the history of this country, and a lot of people don't know about the contributions that he made. And I just wanted to show off a little bit of his home and this beautiful area. It's absolutely gorgeous here today in Beaver Creek. So if you enjoyed the scenery today, if you learned anything, if you just had a good time exploring the area, please do me a huge favor and tap the subscribe button down below. It doesn't cost anything at all, and it does a lot to help me out with this algorithm and help the video get pushed out to more people. Anyway, as for next week I am not sure what's in store. I haven't really decided yet, but it's definitely going to be something amazing. So whatever it is, it will be there waiting for you next Wednesday at 1. Until then, thank you so much for watching. I love you guys. Quackers out.